What's going on, guys? AJ Bunch back here with another video for you. We are in final preparation mode for the Nicole Rene Nationals this weekend. We've got the car pretty much all done and just a couple minor things to go over. One thing I'm doing today is sizing practice tires because obviously you want to try to get those as close to the sizes as your race tires as you can, just so you can get the most accurate information while you're practicing. We did have to do a couple things just because this is going to be a little bit longer race. I put a couple heavier sticks of lead on here just so we're good on weight and not pushing it, just because last year this was a pretty caution-filled race and I don't want to be pushing it super close when it comes down to the end. So that's kind of one thing that we do for the longer races, and maybe it's something you want to look into doing if you are pushing your weight limit. It just seems like it's worth it to throw a couple extra pounds on there and maybe eat a couple extra cookies or something right before the race. So we're not pushing it. So we're gonna jump into sizing tires, and then we'll probably start loading up the trailer. Okay, so as you can see, we just roll them out, use tire tapes. I personally like tire tapes better than a stagger gauge, just because the stagger gauges are okay if you're coming in from a hot run trying to check it real quick and go right back out on track, but I feel like the tire tapes are more accurate. So that's just what we use, to each their own. If you use a stagger gauge, there's nothing wrong with that. But that's just what we do. The one thing I do hate about tire tapes is how easily the tab bends and they roll back up in the tape. So I always put a piece of tape on the end just so it doesn't suck back up in there. So I actually had to fix a tire tape or two to be able to size these. But thankfully, stagger is pretty close to our tires that we're going to use for the race this weekend. Everybody knows the tire shortage and all that. So thankfully, we're going to have a pretty good base or gauge on our practice Friday. I don't know how many laps exactly we're going to put on the car on Friday. It's pretty much all going to see how we feel. There's a lot of heavy hitters coming from Canada and Indiana, and I think a couple guys from Ohio and maybe Charlotte. So should be a pretty good show. Hopefully it puts on a good race for the fans, because this is a cool event. A lot of the proceeds go to local breast cancer families, and as I've said in previous videos, breast cancer is super near and dear to my heart. So this is a great event. We do some stuff to help with the donations and raffles too. So we'll have, I think they are gonna have bike raffles, and there's gonna be an autograph session, and it's just super good for the community. It goes back to a good cause, and I'm glad to see that the pre-entry list at least is close to 30. So hopefully we get at least 20 there, and a whole bunch of people don't back out at the last second, because they do put a lot of time and effort into this event, and I know how exhausting that can be. So next thing we're gonna do is probably get these tires off here and start nut and bolting, and I will kind of run over everything that I nut and bolt check, just so if you don't have a nut and bolt list, you can kind of get one off this video. Okay, so everything I nut and bolt check is, I pretty much check everything I can get a wrench on. That's what I've always been taught. I've kind of tried to preach that in all my videos that we've talked about pre-race stuff. But pretty much what you want to do is you want to check your ball joint nuts, make sure those didn't come loose and your ball joints rolled. Obviously that can create issues when your ball joints are trying to work. I check my Heim jam nuts. Some people forget to check those, and I've seen a couple onboard videos where the people put it so you can see like what the chassis and stuff's doing, and you can see those nuts spinning. So that can possibly affect whether or not you're legal at the end of the race if your radius rod moves, because obviously that's not something you really want moving once you set it. So check those, check the bolts on the back of your brake calipers, your bolts on the back of your hubs, just to make sure those didn't come loose. Normally we put Loctite on those just to help eliminate that. But yeah, so I normally check the bolts on the back of the caliper, the bolts on the back of the hub, all of my jam nuts, my regular bolts with a 3/4 head, my weight blocks. Make sure you check your weight blocks. I can't tell you the amount of times I've seen lead on the track, and thankfully they have us painted a bright color, but somebody could get really hurt if you have a weight block fall off. So please tighten your weight blocks, check them to make sure they're cracked. I know that's something that can happen just because lead is a pretty flexible material. So please check your weight blocks. We don't want anybody getting hurt, torn up race cars over it. And then in the rear end, obviously you do the same thing. You just check your bolts, your shocks, your jam nuts, rods, bolts here. I check my drive shaft bolts every race just to make sure those didn't come loose. And then lead, obviously. So that's kind of where we're at. I do put the extra screws in my drive shaft coupler. I don't think you can really see it from here, but there's 2 set screws that you can put in there. Put those in there. The last thing you want is that nut that's holding your drive shaft coupler to come loose and cause you to pull in. So that's just some stuff that I tend to check. I know I've done a video on that previously, but just since we're getting the car ready for the biggest race of the year, I thought I'd touch on it again. So another thing I did is I changed the ECU and throttle body on this thing. I don't know if you caught it in the last video, but it wasn't idling super great. So I think there was something going on with the throttle body and all the sensors and stuff, because this is all electronic stuff. So that was pretty easy to change. There's a couple clamps that hold the throttle body on under here, and then you just take your air filter off, unhook everything. It's already pre-labeled, so it's pretty easy to go back together. And then that pops right off. And the ECU is also pretty easy to change. It's 4 bolts that hold it into the firewall. You snap your quick connect off for your control wires and stuff. And then when you're doing that, just make sure you have your power off. So if you ever do have an issue with your throttle bodies or your ECUs, I've definitely found that it's a good thing to have a backup one. So we're gonna, after this weekend, send the one I took off here back to Inex to have them look at it and figure out why it was doing the weird things at idle. So hopefully you guys enjoy this video. We're gonna get this car all nut and bolt checked and finish getting it loaded up. So we're gonna have a bunch of content coming from this weekend. I'm gonna try to do a couple videos on my Facebook page. So if you aren't following us, it's just AJ Bunch Racing on Facebook. I'm gonna do a couple short updates on there, and then we'll have our full videos up next week probably. I don't know that I'm gonna be able to have time to edit them before I go back to the track on Saturday. So another thing I wanted to say is a huge shout out to my wife. This is gonna be the first weekend that I'm gonna be gone racing, and she's gonna be taking care of the twins by herself. So a huge shout out to her. Thank you for everything you let me do to pursue my dreams and all the stuff like that. So huge shout out to all the wives out there. I know 2-day events, 3-day events can't be easy on them, and they really kind of are the rock stars behind the scenes. So with that being said, we're going to hop off here. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure you stay tuned for all the content coming from this weekend. Like I said, this is our biggest race of the year, and we put a lot of time and effort into the car this week off camera just to make sure everything was right. We had a couple late nights in the shop. So we're kind of pulling out all the stops. I have a really bad taste in my mouth from last year. Obviously, we got wrecked pretty early and just could never rebound, and then ended up having a bigger wreck at the end of the race. So we're gonna do all we can Friday and Saturday, make sure we get this thing perfect, dialed in. I'm gonna try to be a little bit more aggressive with my driving style, just because I have been watching some footage and stuff and noticed that I am a little bit tentative, which is not great when you're trying to make moves and stuff. So we're gonna do a lot of work on Friday and get this thing dialed in, and we will be back with you guys. The videos will be filmed on Friday and Saturday, but I don't know that I'm gonna have time to get them up, like I said. So probably have those videos up early next week, and hopefully you guys enjoy all of the footage that we get. So thank you guys for watching. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. We really like interacting with everybody. We've really gained some traction. So thank you guys for all that, all your support. It's been super positive, and we enjoy doing this. So we're gonna catch you guys later.